everyone, this is your host Yoshino. You're listening to Artist Decoded. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, in whichever order you want to choose, whatever time you're listening to this. Currently right now it is 7:42 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, August 17th. And this morning, the muse called. And, Greeks and Romans believe that creativity lived outside of ourselves. It's something that we channel, which is why when you hear people say to call the muse, they don't believe, at least the Greeks and Romans did not believe, that the creative energy lived within us. Which makes sense to me, because there are moments when I set aside time for creative work, and it just doesn't come. It just is not there. And I'm sure that everyone that is creative, which I believe is everyone, but more specifically people that have an artistic practice, can understand that. Sometimes it's just not there. And other times it is, and you feel like you're on fire. But that is the way of life at times. And so today, I really wanted to talk about the soul. This morning I woke up and I started writing a little bit into my phone. And I wrote, "The soul is always seeking to grow and to evolve. Whether we listen to our calling or not is on us. We can either move forward with conscious actions or float through the world with unconscious reactions. But ultimately, we are responsible for either clearing the path towards our highest self or cluttering it with more junk and more things to distract ourselves from stepping towards our soul's purpose." And perhaps I have been thinking a lot more about the soul because I've been reading various books with regard to it. I've been reading The Daemon, which is on my desk, by author Anthony Peake. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but let's go with Peck. And Gary Zukav's classic book, The Seed of the Soul. And I've been reading various texts from Carl Jung. And there is this intuitive pull that is pulling me towards the attainment of my personal highest self. And I want to share that with people because specifically I have a podcast and it's a perfect medium to be able to do that. But also I just have been reading a lot of books the past year, and there's certain things that jump out, and I want to share some of this with you all. Speaking of, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. That's also another thing that I've been doing is I haven't, so for the past week, I don't know if anyone has read that book by Michael Pollan called Caffeine. It's really good. You can get it on Audible. I think you can still get it for free. But that was one of the first books that I listened to on Audible. It talks about the socioeconomic factors that went into the production of coffee. And it also talks about how coffee, or caffeine specifically, offsets your circadian rhythm. So recently, actually, I have been testing this out with my body, is drinking decaf coffee, mainly to be able to go to sleep at a proper time and to wake up at a proper time. I mean, recovery is incredibly important for feeling energized creatively and for just feeling good throughout the day. I don't know if you've ever felt sleep deprived and you just feel like a zombie walking around, or, trying to sit down and write or trying to paint or something. And perhaps sometimes that's good. You step out of conscious thought and you allow for the stream to flow in a way. I remember listening to Margaret Atwood talk about her writing practice, and she said to write at any time. Write when you're tired, write when you're fully energized. But personally, I like to feel more in touch with my body, perhaps because I'm all earth sign. But I like to feel more like all of my synaptic energy is firing on all levels at all time. So I like to get my sleep. But anyways, not to veer too off course, but I've been thinking about this, just the idea of either numbing our senses or enriching our senses. And there are many things that pull us away from the attainment of the higher self, which is why it's important to make solid decisions each day. And you're not going to be perfect at it every day, but you can try to hone yourself in to into your intuition. And so in this book, The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav, there is this quote that stood out to me. Every action, thought, and feeling is motivated by an intention, and that intention is a cause that exists as one with an effect. If we participate in the cause, it is not possible for us not to participate in the effect. In this most profound way, we are held responsible for our every action, thought, and feeling, which is to say, for our every intention. And really, you can only know if something is right or not for you by listening to your intuition and by having clear intentions for why you want to do something. A couple questions pop up in my mind that are relevant for me at this time, but I think it resonates with a lot of people. For instance, if you're working on a project, why do you want to do the project you're currently working on? What value does it add to your life? Or are you using it as a distraction from attaining your highest calling? What is your highest calling? And I don't believe that someone's highest calling is something that you'll know right off the bat. Or maybe you do. I don't know. For me, I think I have to kind of stumble my way through things, have a lot of trials and error, and put myself in the position where I can fail a lot in order to find what that higher calling is. And I'm under the impression that we already know what is right for us. But along the way, somewhere, we forget. We forget what our purpose was on this planet. We get distracted by other people and their thoughts and their discursive thinking, which becomes our discursive thinking. And especially now, there are so many access points for distractions. But paradoxically, there's so many access points for information. And how do you filter that? How do you curate that information for yourself in order for you to open yourself up with these access points positively into a place that you want to go? Which brings us back to the idea of the intention. Why do you want to do the thing that you're doing right now? Why are you listening to this podcast, for instance? What drew you to this podcast? Something did. What draws me to wanting to relay this information to you all? For me, I believe that this is part of my highest calling, to be able to share these memories of the muse with you all. And I really think that our souls are trying to attain that higher calling, to evolve, like I was saying earlier with that thing that I wrote. You know, something that has really helped me to put myself back in touch with my true calling is journaling and reading, but specifically journaling, asking questions, asking things that are relevant to the time of my life at that particular time in the present, or also dissecting things of the past. But journaling allows oneself to open oneself up and be vulnerable with yourself in a way that is unfiltered. And I remember when I first started writing and journaling, you know, I would write in a way where I was avoiding my true feelings about something. I think because at that time I lost the connection with myself, and I was essentially lying to myself, or there was a lot of conflicting ideas. And this happens. Conflicting ideas will happen. We're human. And that is kind of the beauty of the paradox, being able to try to sift through that, trying to find our truth. But I remember the journaling at the beginning, I was kind of lying to myself. And on this last podcast with Natalie Goldberg, the writer of Writing Down the Bones, she said that, and this really stood out to me, that writing shows us who we really are. And I think that's true, because over time, the more that you write, the more that it lends itself to honesty, whether you put that into a story or whether you put that into a journal. But it's an access point in order for you to confront yourself. Those things that you're hiding from, those things that lurk in the shadow. And specifically, I think to be emotionally whole human beings, we need to digest our shadow work and not hide away from it. Almost embrace it in a way. Embrace that these darker sides of ourselves exist. And to not be afraid of it. But I think that through understanding and dealing with the shadow, you can actually find truth there. And you can move towards the light. And this is also a paradox because these moments of transcendence are cyclical. You'll never necessarily reach the ultimate point of nirvana because things along the way will challenge you. And those challenges are beautiful in a way where they present opportunities to go back into the underworld during a challenging moment, but to come out and transcend into a higher purpose, your higher being. And actually, these moments will inform you along the way to become a better person if that's what you want. I suppose this episode is more so just an examination of intuition, the higher calling. Recently, I started to pull tarot for myself and write about it, dissect it, understand what it's telling me. And again, that's just another access point, I believe. And all of these things can be tools, these books, various teachings, various teachers, in order for us to find our highest calling, which is why I don't subscribe to dogmatic principles of anything, really. I think it's good to intuitively observe and understand what is right for us and what is wrong. I don't think that any one practice can yield all the results that we're looking for. Perhaps it's a accumulation of different teachings, an accumulation of different practices that bring us back to the singular point of us, and back also into the collective consciousness of other people. But by truly understanding what we stand for, we can actually give more unconditionally and give back more. And I think that's what makes us feel good, is to be able to give back to our fellow human beings. So, thanks for hearing me riff a bit. I just kind of went off the cuff on this one. It's fun in a way for me to do this, but it's also cathartic. And regarding podcast interviews, there's going to be a lot more coming soon. I have a lot more podcast interviews scheduled. And I'm going to try to make it more of a regular practice to release podcast interviews. It's just hard sometimes when there's so many projects and things that require my focus. But I do love interviewing people and getting their insights, being present with them. And yeah, so thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Anyways, I'm wishing you all just a great day, great week, and speak to you next time. Goodbye.